here. Firstly, let me introduce the team, Chair. And then I'll just ask each one of them, as I mentioned them, just to greet the committee so that the committee could see them. Advocate Omar Rabaji Rastaba, who is the Deputy National Director and the head of the Asset Forfeiture Unit. Omar.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. Thank you, NDPP. My name is Omar Asataba. I'm the head of Asset Forfeiture Unit. I'm one of the national deputies in AFU, national deputies in NPA. Thank you very much.
Omar, before you leave, perhaps you can just introduce the team that's with you today from Asset Forfeiture.
Chairperson and honorable members, I'm here with my Special Director of Public Prosecutions, Priya Besesa. She's head of operations, and she's here with one of the advocates heading the asset forfeiture work in Northwest, Advocate Peter Bezuidenhout. Priya, you and Peter, if you can show your faces.
Thank you, Advocate Rabaji. Good afternoon to the committee. And as Advocate Rabaji has mentioned, I am the Special Director, Head of Operations. Pleased to meet you.
Thank you. Peter, is he on?
May it please you, Mr. Chair. My name is Peter Bezuidenhout. I'm stationed at AFU Pretoria.
Thank you very much, Chair. And then there's Advocate Rodney de Kock, who is the Deputy National Director in charge of the National Prosecution Services and the Specialized Commercial Crime Unit that deals with specifically with the cases relating that would interest the committee falls under his portfolio. So Advocate de Kock, Rodney, if you could introduce and your team.
Good evening, Chairperson and honorable members. I'm Rodney de Kock. I'll just pull my mask down a bit because I'm sitting with my colleague, Advocate Lebo Baloy. I'll just ask her to come a bit forward. Advocate Baloy is the recently appointed Special Director to head up the Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit of the MPA. And she's assisting us with coordination here at National with our colleagues in the Northwest Province. Then we have the acting DPP in the Northwest Province, recently appointed, Advocate Rachel Makari, and I'll ask her to please switch on her camera, as well as the acting Deputy Director for the SCCU in the Northwest, Wessel van Biljon. If they can also just please indicate by switching on the cameras and just introducing themselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and honorable members. I'm Advocate Matodzi Rachel Makaris Kaulelo, the recently appointed acting DPP Northwest.
Rachel, I'm not sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry if your video is not working or not switched on, because we can't see you unless it's just me.
It is on NDPP. The problem is we have a load shedding. So okay. We are juggling around with a modem to try to connect. So sometimes it's not connecting that well.
That's fine. Please go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
So I was still saying, just recently appointed acting NDPP Northwest. Actually, today is my full day in the office, my first full day in the office. Thank you.
And our colleague that you've appointed to head up the SCCU in light of the suspension of the head of the SCCU. If you could introduce him, please, Rachel.
Yes, the recently appointed Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions is Advocate Wessel van Biljon. He has also been appointed last week, but he is prepared today for the presentation.
Advocate Wessels, are you there?
I'm here. Good
Wessels?
afternoon. Good day. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and see you.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Wessel van Biljon, and I'm a Deputy Director attached to the DPP's office here in Northwest, and I'm currently heading the portfolio for the SCCU.
Thank you, Chair. And Wessels is holding the fort as heading up the SCCU, as I said. I hope I'm not missing anyone out, but Honorable Chair, members, and of course I see Sipho Ngwema, a spokesperson, is also on this platform. Chair, thank you very much. So I think my colleagues will present an outline, I should say, of you know, what the work is that the SCCU is doing with regard to the Northwest intervention. And they will also speak about their mandates and I think importantly, with regard to the cases, Chair, we will give very these cases. We are acutely aware of the desire to fast track these cases, and we are, you know, with the new leadership in the NPA, Advocate Rastava Rabaji has only come on in June last year, and Advocate de Kock as well. And with the uncertainty and, you know, the instability to a certain extent in the Northwest, I'm very pleased that Advocate Rachel Makari Serkalelo has actually been appointed there. And I have every confidence, Chair, that under her leadership, there will be a lot more direction and I would say speed. And I think she comes with the right attitude to really try to move things and a commitment to the new vision of the NPA. So, Chair, I'm hugely excited about that development. But there are still really a lot of work is going on. My colleagues will talk to that, but we are under no illusions about the challenges that are being faced, and they will talk about the capacitation issues, and you know, we are, you know, working under extremely challenging circumstances, because it's not just about capacitation in the NPA. It's really also about having capacity in our partners, and particularly in the DPCI, in terms of the investigation capabilities. And we can't underestimate how challenging these issues are. We are certainly nowhere near where we would like to be, but we are working really hard to get to where we want to be with regard to both the capacity and the capabilities. So, Chair, with those few words by way of introduction, I'm going to hand over to Advocate de Kock to start the presentation. I think Advocate Baloy will probably be taking us through it, but Advocate de Kock, if you could please introduce. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the committee. Chair, I think perhaps just some guidance. The presentation has been circulated to all the members. I assume that each member has received a copy of the presentation. Now, the presentation deals with the summary of the number of cases in the Northwest based on the intervention. And it also then sets out the list of cases as per the questions of the committee. And so there were two parts relating to the period prior to 2018 and the period after 2018, the proclamation of the intervention. And then the committee asked a series of questions that we have attempted to answer in the presentation. So the presentation is 73 pages in total. So the guidance we seek is just whether it is necessary to go through each slide, or whether the committee would prefer that certain of the slides can be taken as read, and that we are then available for questioning thereafter. The AFU has also done a substantial part of this presentation, and they've followed a similar approach, including answering the questions that the committee posed relevant to the asset forfeiture unit. So just those guidance before we commence.
My view is that just give, yes, it is true that you gave us the presentation. I personally had the possibility of reading it extensively over the weekend, and I'm sure all members of parliament have done the same. Just give us a summary. Yes, I think so. What is also important for me is for us to deal with the challenges that are facing the office in the Northwest, and what do you do to ameliorate that situation. I think just give the summary, we'll see how it goes. But I'm giving both presentations about 45 minutes if you can. See how you're doing it, but yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. So I think we can start on page 5 of the presentation that sets out the current situation as far as the Office of the Northwest is concerned. So I see that is coming up, and then we go to page 5 of the presentation. Yes, that's the one. So members, the recently appointed acting DPP was subsequent to the resignation of Advocate Norco, and the agreement by the President that Advocate Norco could resign effective from the end of February, 1st of March. We at the national office, in consultation with the NDPP, engaged seriously with the issues around the province, and that the consequence of that was the appointment of Advocate Makari to take responsibility for that office. She has a long and deep history in the Northwest, appointed in 1999 as the chief prosecutor in this particular division, has substantial legal qualifications, including a master's, and now in December, she was notified that she will be receiving a doctorate in laws, which will still be conferred upon her by the university. So she's got a lot of understanding of the legal framework of the country, and as well as particular issues that's impacting on the Northwest province. So we are confident that under leadership, until a permanent position is made, that the Northwest will be in secure hands. Of course, from the national office side, we have given her the undertaking that we will support, and that any issue that she needs guidance on, she will have a direct link both to myself and to the national director in terms of the management of that particular office. The MPA has also recently come out of a 2-day strategic planning process, and Advocate Makari was invited to that, and she participated with all the other colleagues regarding the priorities of the MPA and how we envision to take forward all the issues regarding implementation of our strategic plan. So immediately she was informed of this meeting last week, and we also requested that she engages with the office of the SCCU in the Northwest, and she has then undertaken to discuss the matters with Advocate Vilbillion, who is in this Teams meeting with us, and who had also assisted us in the preparation of this presentation. Now, Advocate van Biljon was also a member of the SCCU. He was recently appointed as a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in the general component of the DPP office. But Advocate Makari felt it is important for the continuity of the SCCU office that someone who worked closely with the matters be seized to assist us going forward. So his appointment is done in that context, and he's au fait with most of the cases that is dealt with in the particular unit. And of course, he came up through the ranks of the commercial prosecutions within the MPA and has a deep understanding of it. We also have capacitated, and I think on the last occasion, we gave this information, we capacitated the Northwest office of the SCCU that previously only had 2 people. And so since March 2020, we appointed an additional 4 advocates, and there are 5 contract advocates in the office. Those contracts were recently extended for a 2-year period. So those advocates will be working solely on all the priority cases in the division, and they need to take the cases to court, hence the fact that they have been given 2-year contracts. So from our point of view, we believe that we have stabilized this particular office, and we will continue to work to establish sufficient capacity to do all the work in the province. We are also proposing 5 more advocate posts to be established in the Northwest SCCU office. So if we can move to the next slide. After that slide is slide 7. So this is a snapshot of all the work that is currently being done in the province. So in total, there are 51 cases. The matters in court are currently 13, for decision with the MPA and guidance 13, under investigation 9. There are 16 finalized, 5 convictions, 1 acquittal, and to be enrolled 2 of the 13 indicated above. The total amount involved in these matters are 2.3 billion rand. I will now request that our colleague in the Northwest is going to take us through, in very summary form, the matters listed in the presentation, and those are from pages 10. But before we get to that, currently under the section 100 matters, if we can just go back to slide 8 and 9, under the section 100 matters, the total number of cases emanating from the provincial governments, which the SCCU has been dealing with prior to the intervention, those are 11 matters, which will be discussed. And then the total number of cases emanating from the department subject to section 100 intervention, which were referred to the SCCU since 2018, and those are 9 matters. So a breakdown of these cases is provided below. It includes the case number, the department linked to the case, a brief description of the nature of the case, the level of persons implicated in the investigation, and whether irregular expenditure is specifically alleged, and whether the cases involve COVID-19 related expenditure and the current status. So I'm going to ask my colleague to go through this part, and at the conclusion of that part, I'll ask Advocate Baloyi to take us through the answers that we provided in the presentation. So thank you very much. Can I ask Wessel to please proceed?
Advocate de Kock, before Wessel proceeds, I think taking guidance from the chair, it appears to me that slide 10 through to slide number 30 are basically a description of the various cases. And given what the chair has said, I would propose that we take that as read, and that we, unless there are questions relating to specific matters, we can consider how to deal with it. But I will propose that we go to slide number 31, and deal with specifically with the questions that have been raised by the committee. Chair, if that is okay with the chair, or if we could proceed on that basis.
Now, it's okay with me unless one member is not satisfied, but I think this is the way to go about, because we have these cases and most of them were presented to us by the Hawks as well as the SIU. Yes, I think I agree with you. Go to slide number 31.
31. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
You can proceed on that basis, Advocate Cock. I think it's Advocate Baloy, Lebo.
Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Advocate Baloy.
Thank you very much, NDPP, Advocate de Kock. Good evening, chairperson and members of the committee. I will take you through, as Advocate de Kock has mentioned, I will take you through the questions that were posed by the committee for us to respond to. Now, the first question relates to whether the nature of the cases referred for prosecution, whether there's a pattern in these cases. For example, the level of persons implicated in the investigations, are the systemic issues that prevail in these cases. Now, our response in relation to this is as follows. The matters generally relate to the commissions of the offenses of fraud and corruption relating to irregular appointments of service providers. They also relate to the abuse of supply chain management procedure, as well as the abuse, disregard for applicable legislation, which would be the Public Finance Management Act and the Public Finance Management Regulations. Further, these cases relate to the abuse or disregard for governmental, departmental, enabling prescripts. And the level of the government officials involved in the alleged commission of these offenses are those who are in the top or senior management. Next slide, please. The other question relates to whether the cases finalized by the former NPA head could be reviewed and taken back to the courts. Our response to this is yes, that it is possible to have these matters reviewed. However, in terms of the National Prosecuting Authority policy, page 5 thereof, the review of a case is a continuing process. Prosecutors must take into account changing circumstances and fresh facts, which may come to light after an initial decision to prosecute or not to prosecute has been made. A senior public prosecutor may review decisions made by the prosecutor, and similarly, a director of public prosecutions may review decisions made by prosecutors within his or her area of jurisdiction. All representations must, however, be in writing, and this should be done on a case-by-case basis. Further, the National Director may review any decision taken by a DPP in terms of Section 22 of the NPA Act, and in accordance with Section 179 of the Constitution, the NDPP may review a decision to prosecute or not to prosecute after consulting with the relevant director, and after taking representations within the period specified by the National Director of the accused person, the complainant, and any other person or party whom the National Director considers to be relevant. The next question was, how many of the cases referred are deemed prosecutable? Now, the decisions to prosecute are made after an evaluation of the evidence contained in the case docket of each matter presented to the NPA. Currently, 2 matters have been enrolled from the cases listed above. Another 15 matters are being investigated, in which decisions would only be made when the investigations have been finalized. Next question, how many of the referred cases are not prosecutable, and what are reasons thereof? Now, in respect of the 3 matters where a decision was made not to prosecute, the following reasons were advanced by the prosecutors.
Services were in fact rendered and no evidence of fraud or corruption was detected. There was no evidence of fraud or corruption. Further, on the available evidence, it could not be established that the department has not received value for money in respect of work which was done. On the first leg relating to funds paid over to the public entity, now this is in respect of one of the matters which was outlined in the previous slides. In respect of that first leg relating to funds paid over by the public entity and the department to the private company for the construction of housing, a decision to decline prosecution was taken. There is, in respect thereof, no evidence of fraud or theft relating to the payment of such funds. The private entity did provide value for money, albeit to a limited extent, and any losses flowing from this transaction ought to be the subject of a civil litigation. Now, this slide addresses challenges hindering the finalization of cases and also outlines interventions taken to address and ensure that cases are finalized expeditiously. The first challenge is that the investigation of complex commercial crime cases takes a long time to finalize. Challenges are experienced with forensic reports due to the following: resources not always being available, problems emanating from departments, and where their staff are implicated, then the administrator has to approve the commissioning of an investigation within the department. Also, persons within a department sometimes also assist in hindering the authorization of the forensic audit. In some matters, forensic investigations are commissioned by the administrator or the head of the department, and the NPA or the subs have little or no input into same, leading to forensic reports contributing little or nothing to criminal prosecutions and necessitating the extension of the auditor's appointment. Also, no agreements would exist upfront for the forensic auditors compiling the reports to testify in criminal trials, and the lengthy process in procuring services of forensic auditors also takes an extended time. The third challenge is that the subs and the DPCI have resource constraints, which is a challenge, but it is currently being addressed. This, however, is impacting on the quality and the duration of the investigation. The next question relating to what remedial measures have been undertaken to resolve any technical aspects of referred cases that do not meet the prosecution criteria. Further, is it possible to have an AP-led and NPA-led prosecutorial investigation process? The SCCU works in close collaboration with the investigating authorities. Case plans are compiled in each individual case, and the investigation is dealt with in a project management approach. Ongoing assessment of evidence and guidance is provided by prosecutors throughout the investigation process. It is also important to note that prosecutors do not lead investigations, but they guide investigations. This is in line with the legislative mandate of the DPCI and the subs to investigate criminal misconduct. And except for the investigating directorate of the NPA, the legislative mandate of the prosecution does not empower it to investigate cases. We are also requested to provide detail regarding court judgments passed due to successful prosecution of cases emanating within departments subject to Section 100 intervention. Now, the previous slides have indicated the current status of prosecutions and investigations in respect of the Northwest intervention. As explained, 2 cases are currently on court rolls and they are partly heard. To date, no cases have been finalized with a final judgment. However, all investigations are currently being expedited to ensure that these matters are enrolled as soon as possible. Okay. The next question is whether there are any cases of irregular expenditure being referred to the NPA for further investigations, and if so, what are the relevant details? Now, those cases where irregular expenditure was formally identified by audit reports are investigated. The relevant matters are identified on the previous slides dealing with the cases. The next question is whether there are any COVID-19 expenditure cases which were referred to the NPA for further prosecution. No such cases have been received as indicated in the slides above. However, there are currently 3 cases, though these are relating to municipalities which are under investigation. We were also required to refer to issues raised by the diagnostic reports presented to the ad hoc committee by the National Treasury, the Auditor General, Committee Oversight Visit Report, the Legacy Report, and IMTT in compiling our presentation. Now, in response to that, we were saying that weak supply chain management processes and poor financial controls are prevalent in the provincial government departments. Therefore, in dealing with the cases relating to these departments, guidance is given to the investigation teams to focus on establishing whether there is any criminality to be found on the part of any person or entity in those areas. This would in turn facilitate appropriate charges being brought against the persons or entities who are supposed to ensure compliance with such processes. Now, Chairperson, NDPP, this brings me to the end of the presentation relating to the cases. I will now hand over to our colleagues from the AFU to deal with the AFU related issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lebo. Oma?
Yes, thank you very much, NDPP. I start the presentation here on page 45 by stating outright that AFU doesn't have presence in the Northwest, but however, we are in the process of making sure that we have permanent presence. We're going to appoint a regional head, and currently we have interviewed two senior state advocates, and we are just about to finalize those appointments. Next slide. So currently we are handling these cases from AFU head office in Pretoria. Advocate Peter Bezuidenhout is leading the team, and we also got a very senior, experienced financial investigator from head office. In fact, the team was in Northwest on Thursday. So every 2 weeks, the team from head office in Pretoria go to Northwest to meet with the investigating officer in DPCI, in the Hawks. And they've got this meeting. And in that regard, we've had traction in terms of moving these cases forward. So as the NDPP said, I came in June, and in July, I already set up this capacity to commence with the investigations in Northwest. And then from September 2020, still last year, then I had more financial investigators added to this team. Now in January, I've appointed 2 additional contract, very senior experienced advocates from the bar to join the Northwest team. So we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we capacitate the team in Northwest. So next slide, we are considering establishing a footprint. In fact, it's a decision we've already taken to make sure that we've got a fully fledged office in Northwest, in the DPP's office, and as well as establish an office in Klerksdorp so that we're co-located with the Hawks to enhance the speed of these investigations. So moving ahead, Chairperson, I want to, I'm now on slide 48. Okay, so the AFU was established 20 years ago, and I must say, at this stage, it has got 600 reported cases. So the jurisprudence as far as taking the proceeds out of crime is well established in our country. So it was created to make sure that we do not allow the criminals to get away with the proceeds and the ill-gotten gains that they have taken, that they got when committing these crimes. So in that regard, we are guided and we rely on forensic audits, FIC reports, any other investigation reports by other law enforcement agencies. We rely on investigations by SAPS in particular and DPCI. And then we do get referrals by NPS, as we'll see much later in this presentation. We've got 7 cases from SCCU, Specialized Commercial Crime Unit. And the point I'm trying to make is that we don't start investigations. So in AFU, we've got investigators, but they are financial investigators. So they do asset tracing and profiling to see what ill-gotten gains were received in the commission of the offense. So there has to be first be a criminal offense, and then we do asset profiling. On slide 49, Chairperson, I deal with the AFU key strategic objectives that I will not deal with, but the point that we're making there is that currently we've got the national presence, we're still expanding. As I've said, that we're going to make sure that we've got a fully fledged presence in Northwest, to make sure that in every situation where there's criminal investigation, if there are assets, we have to take them away. On slide 50, Chairperson, I explain the methodology in terms of how we do our work in AFU. We've got Chapter 5 proceedings, which is linked to criminal proceedings, where forfeiture only takes place after conviction. So we can only finally remove those assets, sell them, and put the money into the criminal asset recovery account once there's a conviction. So here we are dependent on a successful prosecution of a case. Then we've got Chapter 6 proceedings of POCA, which is where there's reasonable grounds to believe that that the assets of a person accused before court are proceeds of crime. Secondly, that whether the car or the house, those are instrumentalities used in committing an offense. So the point I'm making here with this slide, Chairperson and honorable members, is that whether we go Chapter 5 route or Chapter 6 route, we are dependent on successful criminal investigations to prove that there's reasonable grounds to believe that these are proceeds of crime or instrumentality of an offense. And with Chapter 5, it has to be a successful prosecution of a case which results in a conviction. So we don't start the case. We are in the middle. We either get referral, as I said, from investigative agencies or from prosecution, as you'll later see in this presentation. And as I've said, this POCA legislation is to make sure that we deprive the person involved of the ill-gotten gains. It's one thing to be convicted of an offense, but it's equally important to make sure that you are deprived of your ill-gotten gains, so that whatever loss the department has suffered, the actual proceeds are taken away from the criminal. So the recovery is dependent on the actual realizable property, meaning the department might have lost 40 million, but eventually what we are going to realize might be lesser than the 40 million. That's the point I'm making there. So I've already explained if we move to the next slide, on page 52, what we have done in terms of capacitating our office and the fact that we managing these cases, although we are there every 2 weeks, to make sure that we distraction in investigating and finalizing these cases. In determining the potential of any of these matters, the AFU relies on forensic audit reports that we obtain from National Treasury. In fact, most of the Northwest cases we have obtained draft or interim audit reports from National Treasury. We also do get statements or investigation report from the DPCI, and then, as I've explained, then there's a further investigation by financial investigators from AFU to determine how much the accused person has got, how much assets they have, or how much the respondent has. Now, so most of the cases, as we're speaking here, some of them are still with DPCI, which is the Hocs that we meet with in Klerksdorp, and some of them are still waiting for forensic reports from National Treasury. Then the investigators, for those that we've got 2 finalized forensic reports from Treasury. The AFU investigators are doing basic asset checks and flow of funds analysis. And then for those that we have to go, that we've gotten from SCCU, the 7 matters we've gotten from SCCU, we're awaiting final decision to prosecute. Moving on to slide 54, honorable members, I will hand over to Special Director, Head of Operations, Advocate Priya Beseswa, to deal with the actual cases. Thank you very much. Priya?
Thank you, Advocate Rabaji, and thank you, Chair. If I will just briefly move on in the next 3 slides, covering next 4 slides, I beg your pardon, the cases that is with the asset forfeiture unit and the departments at which it's come from. The National Treasury has identified 9 matters with possible asset forfeiture potential. Below I list the departments from which those matters emanate from, without specifically giving details on the nature of the offences or the persons suspected of committing the offences and the values. So we have one from the Premier's office. We have
Priya, sorry to interrupt. I don't think you need to go through all of the detail. It's there. You can just move on to the next point.
Thank you. Thank you, NDPP. And just lastly, a total number of 6 matters have been referred to the AFU and to consider asset forfeiture potential. If we move on to slide 55. In slide 55, I have briefly mentioned the orders that have been obtained in regard to human settlements, value of 80 million. The Northwest Department of Public Works 1 and 2. The referral has not been received as yet. The matter is under investigation. As Advocate Rabaji mentioned, we come in when the matter is throughout the investigation stage, where there's a criminal offence that can be proved, to either consider Chapters 5 or Chapter 6 proceedings. Slide 56. Also then, Chair speaks about the different departments and the stage of investigations from an asset forfeiture potential. So I will not go into detail. We've included quite a lot of detail in slide 56. Then in slide 57, we just break down the regions or the districts in which the matters are coming from. And we've broken it down so it's clear the geographic location of those matters that's being looked at by the SCC. Matters the AFU is looking at per referrals from the SCCU. Thereafter, from slides 58 onwards, we specifically answer the questions that has been posed to the asset forfeiture unit. And on the onset, I want to mention the observations made, or many of the responses given by my SCCU colleagues, Advocate Baloy, is the similar responses from us. But I will then quickly take the committee through those questions. On slide 59, the same response was then requested from the SCCU. And yes, it is correct. We have observed the same kind of patterns in the cases as alluded to by Advocate Baloy. On slide 60, we break down the matters that have been finalized. And we have finalized one preservation application, and that would be in the matter whereby I mentioned we have an 80 million rand preservation. The forfeiture application is pending in the sense that the forfeiture application was filed, the matter is being opposed. We are then in the process of arguing an opposed matter, and we have one finalized confiscation application. We have tried to illustrate the time frames, and we have tried our best to look at the stage of the investigations, the stage of the asset forfeiture investigations, and to illustrate the time frames. With regard to the Office of the Premier, we're hoping to have possible a civil recovery by the end of 2022, the end of the current financial year. Department of Public Works, we are unable to make a projection. The matter is still under investigation. Chair, if we can move to 61. And in slide 61, we then take the committee through all the matters that are with us. And we then illustrate that we are unable at this stage in the matters put in slide 61 to give a proper or a very definite time frame as to when actions will be taken, due to the fact the matter is under investigation. And as was previously mentioned, these are very in-depth, very complex criminal investigations, and it does take time. And throughout your investigations, it's very possible that additional evidence can come through. So hence, we are a little bit apprehensive to give projection dates. And slide 62. Again, we then just take the committee through our possible projection dates and whether it is possible in a specific matter. We then just summarized the reasons or the explanations why we say what we say about projection dates, in the sense that the matter sourced from the Northwest SCCU of Chapter 5, that is your criminal forfeiture. One can only move in those matters once the investigation is finalized and the charge sheet is available and the person is about to be arrested. So we will then have to, and we are currently working very closely with our colleagues in SCCU to jointly look at those matters, guide the investigations, and thereafter map a project plan on the way forward, how we will deal with it. So the projections are thus made in light of the explanation I have respectfully put forward, Chair. Thank you. The next slide, slide 62. We talk generally about the factors or the challenges that hinder our finalization and what interventions we put in. As I previously mentioned, the matters are very complex. The investigations are extremely complex. It requires very in-depth forensic reports. It requires flow of funds. It requires tracing criminal assets. And our criminal forfeiture is often dependent on the finalization of the criminal investigation, our asset forfeiture applications. We did allude to our capacity constraints in the Northwest. However, Advocate Rabaji has addressed this issue and has a very strong, experienced, strong capacity in the Pretoria office, prioritizing these matters. And that capacity has Advocate Rabaji has given us the undertaking that she will she will increase that capacity if the need arises. So there is no hindrance in increasing the current capacity. And we, therefore, all I can conclude on that is that we are prioritizing the cases. We are expediting our internal AFU investigations with possible immediate recovery or attention being given to the cases. Slide 64. I will not go into it. Advocate Rabaji has already addressed the committee on the efforts she has made and the prompt action from her to capacitate this intervention and the resources in this intervention. Then I move to slide 65. And slide 65, we look again at the challenges and what we've done in slide 65. We have a short-term solution where we've just capacitated the team with highly experienced members to prioritize a number of cases for quick asset forfeiture, expedient asset forfeiture action. But what we look at now, medium to long-term solutions, we are aware there are a number of cases in the Northwest intervention, and we are looking at referring the matters to the experts in the other regional offices throughout the country to then draft those matters and take those matters to court. And we are looking at also engaging with the other expertise in the regions to help settle papers, to settle content, to settle strategy on cases and case plans. We also then are in regular contact with our stakeholders, being the SARS and CIPC, where they often give us input. And I must also mention, we have a very, very strong relationship with National Treasury, who is always making themselves available to assist us going through the forensic reports and providing us with the information. In the medium to long-term solutions, we are looking at securing the services of senior outside counsel on a case-to-case basis. And the reason why we're looking at this is we do anticipate that these matters will be heavily litigated. And we want to just make sure our drafts stand scrutiny. And when the litigation comes, we have a strong support to the AFU to successfully argue these matters or fight these matters in court. And the next slide, slide 66. We will progress with recovering the money, and we cannot at this stage illustrate or undertake or give an undertaking as to how much we can recover. Advocate Rabaji did go into detail as to the processes we have to follow with the AFU. So it's not necessarily the loss to the department that can be recovered. It will very much depend on the realizable property that we can act against. So at this stage, we cannot comment on the projected value of the recoveries. It's too soon in the process to make such an undertaking. Slide 67. We again then, I just illustrate, as I've mentioned before, the recoveries or the freezing and recoveries of orders that we have obtained. We have 80 million rand under preservation, and we have confiscated / forfeited 425,000, which was the value of a kickback. Slide 68. Again, we were asked to comment on the public funds involved in corrupt practices and maladministration, which is part of the investigations. My colleagues have mentioned 2.3 billion earlier, but as I stated, we will not be able to quantify the actual amount that will eventually be recovered, either to put into the criminal asset recovery account. It's very difficult at this stage to make that determination until such time we've conducted proper and in-depth asset tracking and forensic investigations in the matter. 69, again, we advanced the same response to 69. And then slide 70, again, it was us putting the stats or the orders that we've obtained, as I've mentioned, is 80,425,000. That has been frozen and confiscated respectively. And then 71, no, we have not. From the AFU side, when a matter has been referred to date, we have not rejected any matter. We will then look at the matter and assess the matter. And we are also awaiting a referral of a number of municipality cases or matters from National Treasury. Discussions are ongoing. We are then discussing it with National Treasury to look at irregular expenditure matters. And lastly, we are not aware of any COVID-related cases that has actually been referred to us or being dealt with by the Fusion Center. On slide 72, again, we will just mention the matter where we have an 80 million rand preservation order, and this was done prior to the Northwest intervention case. And lastly, on 73 is again the COVID. Thank you, NDPP, Advocate Rabaji, and Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Advocate Rabaji or Advocate Hoc, is there anything more you'd like to add?
There's nothing further from our
No,
side.
thank you. So, Chair, that is a presentation of the NPA on, and I would like to be very candid, Chair. You know, when one looks at the enormity of what one is dealing with in the Northwest, we're not sitting on our laurels saying, you know, yeah, we are winning the fight. It's really hard work, and I really, you know, what the colleagues now are trying to do in terms of building capacity, capability, getting the right people in the SCCU space. You know, the investigations you would have heard from General Libya. You know, that they are you know, led by the DPCI, and prosecutors do guide and assist. But the capacity in the DPCI very, very heavily impacts on the criminal cases. And then, as you heard from Advocate Rabaji, a lot of their work, particularly the Chapter 5 cases, depend on criminal cases being properly investigated to the point of at least a charge sheet. So it's all interlinked. And so the weaknesses across the system are stark. And so, but we're not sitting back and you know, and just kind of, you know, with like deers in headlights, just thinking there's nothing we can do. We are really putting our heads together with our partners internally and with our partners to really look at, within the limitations that we have, what can we do to meet the challenges relating to forensic capacity, etc. I mean, the amounts in asset forfeiture, it's a minute drop in the ocean. And so, you know, it's not something that we can say we are winning the battle at the moment. But certainly, you know, it's in terms of the new leadership in the organization, the new plans, the new energy, the real focus, the new leadership in the Northwest. You know, I feel confident that this picture the next time, or maybe not the next time, because if you call us back in 2 weeks, we won't have much more to report to you. But certainly when we do a report in sometime in the future, we certainly hope that the picture will be changed, Chair. Thank you very much. We stand ready to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Batoyi and your team. I think this was very, very comprehensive, enlightening, and thank you very much for that. Actually, you have oversupplied and, in my view, and overcompensated in terms of sharing this information. But we are going to engage with this because the issues at the political level and on the ground, they warrant us to move with speed. With that in mind, I'm going to invite honorable members to engage with the presentation. They are free to ask questions make observations, make suggestions about how we must proceed forward in terms of all of this, because this is quite important. It's at the heart of what we are doing as the Select Committee. As I indicated, we are now in the Northwest Province, in the capital of Mafeking, and we're doing our work there. And what we have just experienced today is horrific. It's something that we need to set an example of and say this is how we can proceed forward as a country in terms of dealing with issues of crime and fraud and corruption in that sense. Let me check who wants to come in from members. You are free, members, to raise your hands and press your buttons and indicate if you want to really speak and make contributions. I pick up Honorable Ditoy and who else? Honorable Ryder, and please show your faces so that we must reciprocate. Others must also see who are their public representatives, who they are talking to, and all of that. Over to you, Honorable Ditoy.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I just want to appreciate the presentation that was given to us today. It's very comprehensive. Thank you for the hard work that is going into this. We do believe and we know that this is not investigations that will be finalized in 2 weeks' time, but thank you for the work that you are doing. Chair, I only have one question, and this emanates from the presentations that was given today and the interaction with the MECs, where the MEC of Agriculture mentioned that they've got challenges with cases being reported to the Hawks and those cases are not investigated. If we can just be given guidance as to how such cases must be handled. Apparently, the Department of Agriculture is being told that disciplinary routes must rather be followed than looking into the fraudulent or alleged fraudulent activities. It's only the one question from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ditoy. Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, yes, look, I remain concerned with the number of cases that are being, coming to an actual head compared to the number of investigations that are going on. I think we've had some indication as to the reasons for that and so on, and I'm still not happy, but I doubt I ever will be, to be honest. But the big question that I want to ask today, and I think it's relevant, Chairperson, to the work that we are doing as a committee, and the question is, to the NPA, what is the level of cooperation with your investigations that you are getting? Are you experiencing good cooperation from municipal officials, from the affected people, or are you being stonewalled by a closing of the ranks to affect the politically connected? If you can help me with that, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Honorable Zandamela.
No, thanks, Chair. Chairperson, look,
if you don't mind, show your video, please. They want to see you. It's important. Let's reciprocate.
Yes. Okay. Can you see me, Chair?
I do.
Yes. Look, Chair. I'm a bit concerned, especially with when we engage with a lot of departments. Now, the reports that we are getting, they don't speak to each other. Especially, you get a different report from the SCOPA, you get different report from the law enforcement, and that it makes us as a committee to be lost somehow along the way. I think, I don't know, we just need to be assisted, because the AG report and all the departments that we've been engaging with, their reports they're supposed to be, even if they cannot be the same report, but at least they should speak to each other. If there's 13 cases that are in court as per the NPA, we should be getting that sense, especially from OPA and other law enforcement. So I don't know, Chair. I'm a bit concerned with it, and I don't know why it's that, but I think the committee will need to be assisted in that regard. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Zandamela. Can I take Honorable Sileku?
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Let me also appreciate the presentation and the kind of work that went to the 73 slides. It is indeed a lot of information. But Chair, my concern is that the departments that has been mentioned in these reports, you'll find some of the cases that has been investigated would deal with officials, senior officials. But what is worrisome is that all these departments, they have political principles. If there is any irregularities happening in their departments, why don't we hear of any potential investigation or potential prosecution when it comes to these political principles? Or is the scope of the investigation only focused on administrations or administrators? Because whenever there is issues of corruption in this country, the only scapegoat you'll find is officials that have been dealt with, is the names of officials. But when it comes to political principles that are responsible for these departments, there is nothing happening in that regard. And I just want to advocate just to elaborate on these issues of, are we going to see going forward that we might see a different picture when it comes to political principles in the Northwest, because they were responsible for these departments. And what the people are actually waiting and looking for is to see these so-called political principles that regard themselves as untouchables are indeed going to be touched, and they are going to account, because they have brought the Northwest to tatters, and the people of Northwest are suffering. But now all we hear about reports is, regardless of whoever the law enforcement agency that you are engaging in, you'll find that they are talking about external factors, they are talking about individuals in administration, but nothing has been mentioned about departments. And that's where the problem is. And Chair, also what I would like to know is that how often does the NPA engage with the Department of Northwest, or especially the oversight body, which is COPA? Because what we've heard today about, there are some cases, that has also been raised that have not been part of the IMTT. And mine is basically because there is unhappiness in terms of the law enforcement agencies, in some cases where they feel that, this case has been, you just dealt or the law enforcement are only taking about 5 days to determine the outcome of a case, whether it has potential for prosecution or not. And they don't feel, this is the right way to go. So I would like to ask to know, in terms of your cooperation and your communication with the Northwest, and especially the oversight body. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shabele.
Thanks, Chairperson. Yeah, let me say thanks to the NPA, Advocate Patoli and her team. Thank you very much. I just want to check, when we met with the SCOPA this morning, there were issues that they raised about the whistleblowers who were not interviewed by the police. Now I just want to check, are you aware of those? And then if so, can we as a committee share this information that we got from SCOPA, or to ensure that some of this information, these whistleblowers are interviewed and that they help in getting to the bottom of the investigations. I don't want to repeat what other members have said, Chairperson, but that for me is very important. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Nita.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me also follow those who, sorry, I didn't open. Let me also follow those, Chair, that are appreciating the report by the NPA. Chair, one thing that I want to raise, Chair, and re-emphasize it, you know, we met different stakeholders today, Chair, and there's only one thing that is common amongst them, is the high level of frustration on law enforcement agencies. They even went to the extent of saying some of the cases that they report, they end up being struck out of the roll without even those people that have laid charge understanding how did that happen. So I want to re-emphasize that point because it's important that the cases that are being reported, they must be followed to the latter. There's that eagerness of wanting to see things happening, which they feel that the law enforcement agencies are failing them. The last point from me, Chair, is to at least appreciate the fact that there is a step to the right direction, that there's capacitation of the department at that level of the Northwest offices. So now at least if we continue to have that situation of a capacitation, maybe things will change. This cry of not following on the matters, it will end. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nita. Now that all members have made their own reflections, asked questions and made their own observations, I want to also take a bite. Firstly, I want to say that, yes, this presentation was very, very much comprehensive, very much important, and it indeed inspires confidence in terms of the work of the NPA. And my contribution, therefore, is as follows. Firstly, I somewhat have full confidence in the head of the NPA. I must confess that and make it upfront. I have full confidence in the work that we do. I do so because I understand the magnitude of the work that is ahead of you. I understand the complexities of your institution. I also understand that your institution in the past was riddled with so many issues that I don't want to bring here. And to ameliorate it, to improve it, it takes a long time to put up structures in place, to put up systems in place, to put up processes in place. Not easy to get the NPA right. And the NPA must be our home because we must prosecute without any fear, pain, or prejudice. We must make sure that any criminal activity that is happening in our country is dealt with quite comprehensively. For me, that is quite important to just register that point to say, as you can also hear what members are saying, members are expressing a vote of confidence to the NPA. Now, just some few issues. I think there are missteps in the process. I don't believe that a decision to send the head who just resigned was a proper decision given the problems that are afflicting the province. I don't think so. I don't think so, because 2 weeks ago, as this committee, we invited the Northwest Task Team. The report actually invited the IPID to share with us the Northwest Task Team. And in that presentation, we were told that this task team is facing allegations of murder, of kidnapping, of all these horrendous criminal activities that we can think of. And these are the people in the Northwest who were expected to deal with crime and corruption. And where I see it, I understand that people in the Northwest, especially politicians and high senior officials, were acting with impunity because they felt protected by these law enforcement agencies. And for me, where I see clearing up all of this debt, it will take some time, but once you inspire confidence and demonstrate in so many ways that underpinning your conviction is an unflinching commitment to clean up, you restore our confidence to the institutions, and we believe in you and your integrity to deal with the issues at hand. And it is from that vantage point that I say, I think we will support the MPA and any other law enforcement agency that seeks to restore order in the Northwest. That is the first point that I want to bring forward. The second point, as the chair of the committee, I want to bring forward this matter. The Northwest Province is under administration. The government, before the invocation of Section 100, had collapsed. There were a lot of allegations, and it's quite important to deal with this particular issue quite appropriately. As honorable members have indicated, what we receive today, in addition to the information that we got, is horrific. The kind of challenges, it's like we watching a Hollywood movie. It's like we are not in South Africa. And for me, I think this issue must be confronted. It must be confronted because we cannot allow people who commit theft, who steal, and who pillage with impunity the resources and everything that belongs to the state, and we fold our arms in the helpless surrender. We can't afford that situation to unfold. And for me, this is quite important. Now, my few issues. You have 51 cases that you have brought to this committee that we look at. But I want to argue that there are more than these cases, because piles and piles of other cases were forwarded to us today. But in addition to that, there are people who need some protection in one way or the other, who are whistleblowers, who say they have information, but they can't disclose it because they feel unsafe, they feel unprotected, they feel that anything can happen to them. And you can't blame them, you can't falter them if they feel this way, because key people who were regarded as corruption busters in the Northwest disappeared. Mosparkwa is one case in point, Botswana is one case in point, and there are many, many other cases where people who were fighting corruption were followed up, were dealt with, and at the end of the day, what happened to them is too ghastly to contemplate. And my view is that people would necessarily fear to come before the law enforcement agencies and disclose. But the fact of the matter is that the province is going down the drain, and those who are responsible must be dealt with. And my worry, Advocate Batoy, is how the law enforcement agencies are coordinating. They are coordinating their efforts. I feel that they work in silos. I feel that the SIU, the Hogs, and the MPA are acting in silos. I'm saying this because we will forward them their presentation, or you can retrieve it from the YouTube. All of them are saying, we have submitted our cases, our dockets, we have submitted this and that to the NPA for prosecution, but the matters are with the NPA. Notwithstanding what I've just articulated about your problems, your challenges, and all the issues that you have to confront with, but people are saying, actually the matters rest with the NPA, and the NPA has got to take decisions about the prosecution of those particular cases. And for me, I want to sincerely implore on you to find ways and mechanisms. And I understand that you have seconded a lot of people, you have appointed a lot of prosecutors, but there must be a magical way that we follow, a pattern that we follow in order to deal with these particular issues. And in my honest view, with all this that is said for the Northwest, if you can address the issues of the Northwest, it will set an example for the whole country that there will never be people who steal from the public and they are left unchallenged, they are left unattended to, especially people in the highest echelons, especially people who are senior managers and senior politicians in the province. Because in the process, they will find some sophisticated ways of bullying you, of blackmailing you, of saying things that when you sit alone, they will want you to make feel that there is connivance in what you do. And for me, you don't have to give way, you don't have to step back, you have to unflinchingly attend to these particular issues because they are quite important and they need to be resolved in that particular way. And if we can do that, I'm sure we can use the Northwest as a way of setting an example that if you are a politician, if you are a senior manager, if you are top business people with connections, you can be followed to the latter. We can deal with you, and the law, in the true sense of the word, without prejudice, without favor, without whatever, we will ensure that justice is seen to be done. And for me, this is quite important. I thought that I must make that addition on top of what honorable members have articulated. And I think the central message from them is that you're doing a good job. You provide them with the right information, but what must resolutely push you forward, that must propel you, is that you deal with these particular issues and you solve all the obstacles that are on your way, so that at the end of the day, we restore order in the province of the Northwest. With that in mind, I want to afford you this opportunity to make some reflections on the questions and suggestions and observations by members going forward. Over to you, Advocate.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to first call upon my colleagues, Advocate de Kock and his team and Advocate Rabaji and her team, to deal with some of the specific questions, and then I will pick up on things that they may not have addressed, and with some remarks after them, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, NDPP. NDPP and Honorable Chair, as the prosecutors, we really welcome the message of support that you have given us. Prosecutors are completely committed to the work that we have to do. And we completely committed to the partnerships that we are forging with law enforcement. So we are aware of the dynamic of us working in silos. And as we speak, we are working to fix that, both at the level of the leadership of the respective departments. So I personally would meet on a regular basis with General Abaya. The NDPP meets with General Abaya. We meet regularly as this collective with other agencies at the anti-corruption task team level. And as we speak, we're working to strengthen all these structures, to identify all the priority cases throughout the country, to ensure that we approach all these matters on a project management approach, to ensure that we've got sufficient resourcing, to look at the question of forensic capability within the state. And that is one of the initiatives that we're currently pursuing very vigorously, so that we can get matters expedited. So as we speak, we've seen some of the results coming through, and we give this committee the assurance as well that we are very serious about what we have to do here. Very, very serious. So our people are committed, and we are going to win this fight to ensure that we deal with those individuals who have a thought that it's impunity and that they can just do what they want to. Now, on the question of when do we deal with political principles, etc., what I want to say is that we will follow the evidence. In all the matters, our approach is that we look at the matters objectively and we deal with the matters as they come to us, and we follow the evidence. So that is it, no matter who it is. If there's evidence that justify a prosecution, we are going to prosecute. So that is the undertaking that we give. And as we build our cases, we will move in that direction, and we will ensure to hold each and every person accountable where there's evidence that they were involved in criminal activity and criminal undertakings. And similarly, the AFU, where they are justified to be able to recover assets, they will also give those kinds of undertakings. I just want to also deal with the question of whistleblowers. We are very mindful of the challenge that we have with whistleblowers, and we are also looking in collaboration with the Department of Public Service and Administration and other relevant departments to look at amending the legislation to make it more comfortable for whistleblowers to come forward and to receive the necessary assistance. So that work is happening. And we're also involved with other law enforcement agencies for assistance in terms of the development of our law. But closer to what we are currently doing, we are ensuring that where there is a whistleblower, that the whistleblower can receive the necessary protection. So what I want to suggest, Chair, that to the extent that you may have received information, that can be passed on confidentially to us so that we can, on a very confidential basis, deal with anyone who wants to cooperate with law enforcement. And we do have various processes within the prosecution and within the witness protection unit to ensure that those whistleblowers can get the necessary protection and that we can be able to assist them in terms of how we deal with the information. But we are mindful that there are challenges with the legislation, and there are challenges with making people confident that they can come forward and be involved with law enforcement. But I want to say to all South Africans that this is what we want. We want people to cooperate with us. We want people to come forward and to give us information. We want people to be confident that they can trust the leadership of the prosecution. And to such an extent that anyone who feels they're not confident in dealing with any law enforcement agency will have a direct line to the NDPP, to myself, to any colleague of a very senior position in the MPA. So that is what we can extend at this point. And we're inviting all South Africans to contribute towards this fight. Where you have information, share that information so that it can be investigated. And where you need protection, we are here to provide that protection to you. So, Chair, that is just a very high-level response from our side on two aspects. And if I then can ask the colleague who is seized with the matters in the province to deal with some of the case-specific questions that you have raised with us. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So I hand over to Advocate van Biljon to just respond to some of those. I think it's 3 questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think it was the level of cooperation, with the investigation by municipal officials, to the extent that our colleagues are aware of that, given that investigations is in the DPCI space. But if they have any information about that, and just to check if there are any other more operational questions, Wessels.
Thank you, NDPP. Thank you, Chair. One of the first questions was also relating to cases being reported to the police. I think the first committee member referred to agricultural cases. Obviously, that's not supposed to happen. There should be a follow-up by the police and feedback given to the complainants. I obviously cannot speak on behalf of the DPCI or the SAPS. I would say that, and of course, as the NPA, we only work with cases referred to us. We don't have investigating capacity or mandate. So we won't necessarily know of all cases being reported to the police for us to then follow up. So if the case is reported to the police and nothing seems to happen, I would obviously, one would need to follow that up from station level to provincial level up until national level. And of course, nothing prevents a person from, as Advocate de Kock said, sharing information with us, with the NPA, and saying, I've reported this case under this case number, and we're not getting any feedback. May you inquire from the police or assist us? And I'm sure we can try our best to do something about that. Then I think the other question, just correct me if I'm wrong, the level of cooperation from the department and especially affected persons and us, the investigation teams being stonewalled, that differs from case to case. As a general rule, in the past years, we are receiving good cooperation from departmental officials. Obviously, there are cases where departmental officials are implicated and they would naturally try and hinder investigations. But there are ways around that. For instance, we are in the last few years getting a lot of inputs from Treasury on national and provincial level, where they step in as the ultimate custodians of public funds. And they report the case, they commission a forensic investigation, and the case finds its way to us through that. And in that way, circumventing the stonewalling, as the one committee member mentioned. We had a case where forensic investigation, or the funding for the forensic investigation was stopped, and it ultimately became clear that it was stopped by one of the persons implicated in the investigation. Eventually, through high-level engagement and with the help from Treasury, we were able to circumvent that and get the forensic investigator to finish his report, and we received the report towards the end of last year. Even though we managed to get the report, it caused a delay of a year. So yes, we have cooperation. Yes, there are some problems. Yes, we are dealing with those problems. And then I think Advocate de Kock has already dealt with the whistleblowers. Yes, we have cases we are aware of cases where whistleblowers came to the fore. In that regard, obviously, the police needs to handle those reports with circumspection. We need to be on board as soon as possible so that our mechanisms that are in place, for example, witness protection and so on, can kick in as soon as possible and provide these persons with the necessary protection where necessary. And then I'm not sure whether or not there's any other of the questions that you need some feedback on.
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. There are a couple of questions that I'll just maybe add to what colleagues have said. And I think the first one was Mr. Ryder, who said, you know, they're just they're so concerned about the number of cases and investigations, and not happy about it. And I can understand that perfectly. And you know, there's just you know, there's so much to do, and there's, you know, as I said at the outset, we are not we're not sitting back and saying, I mean, this is a tip of the iceberg. But hopefully, you know, that picture will change. And I don't know that we will ever be able to, in terms of numbers, be able to get to a point where, there would be satisfaction in terms of numbers. But we certainly hope that in terms of the impact that the cases make, that will be, demonstrated by the cases that come to court. And there was the issue of, the fact that, it seems like the lower level administrators are the ones that are being held accountable, and that it's not the political principles that are being held accountable. And as Advocate de Kock said, we don't target individuals, but we certainly follow the evidence, and that's really important because we are not politicians, and we're not here to do play political games. But what we are here is to ensure that those that have plundered our government resources are held to account, no matter which part of the political spectrum they belong to. The evidence will be there. We will vigorously, as you, Chair, said at the end, pursue these, because besides being prosecutors, Chair and honorable colleagues, we are citizens of this country. We are as outraged as you are by what corruption at the highest levels has done to our country. And we know that we are at the forefront in terms of trying to turn the country around, to build confidence, and at so many levels, to help rebuild the country. And our work, not alone with our partners, is absolutely crucial. So from that perspective, our drive as citizens and the fact that we can do something because we have the powers to do it is, at this point, there's and Advocate de Kock said it. I mean, but these are not just words. We can sit here and say we committed, we dedicated, we must demonstrate in our actions that this is in fact what we're doing. And therefore, I have the new acting DPP here. I have our colleague Vessel, who's just filling in. I'm glad that they're on this portfolio, plus the national, we are all at the national level here. Our words are meaningless. It's about actions and impact. So, the issue of also building cases, it's very difficult sometimes to, as you start out, to be able to hold, let's call it those most responsible at the higher ends of the ladder. And so building cases sometimes requires that those at the lower levels are in fact indicted and brought to court, because honorable Chair and honorable members, if there's no incentive for people to talk, and very often in order to get to the higher levels of those that were responsible, they don't do things that are, where it's easy to find the evidence unless there are forensic money trails. People that were in meetings, etc., or at the lower levels have no incentive to talk against very powerful people with a lot of money. And so very often you need, as law enforcement, to build cases from the lower level. So when people are sitting and thinking, I better make a choice here. I'm either facing 15 years or I got to talk. And then I'm still going to probably go to prison, but I've got to weigh so it is sometimes absolutely necessary in order to get to those most responsible that the cases are built from the lower level. So it might appear like, only the officials, because that is the reality, but it is, hopefully it will help us move up the chain to, you're right, those most responsible must be held accountable. So, that is really important for us. And, in terms of I think it was Honorable Zandamela who said the reports don't talk to each other. We at so many different levels, it's difficult, to align. And so maybe if there are specific examples that can be given to us, we're happy to respond to those. But there's just so much out there that that's being referred to us. There's so many numbers and figures and things referred in different reports. It's difficult to align all of them. But if there's certain specific glaring inconsistencies, then it would really help us to bring that to our attention so that we can account for those inconsistencies in the reports. in terms of law enforcement frustration, I think it was Honorable Mthita that mentioned frustrations with law enforcement. I can understand that because the wheels are not turning as fast as people want. So, but as if matters are struck off, for example, then I urge, as Vessel said, for those that have been affected to really go to the local prosecutor's office, to the SCC office, even to the DPP office, and give specific details about it so that they can get answers. That is what part of our victim responsive approach is. DPPs and everyone in the NPA knows we have a responsibility to respond to the people of South Africa. So I urge people where you have these challenges, it's very frustrating. Please, write to your DPP's offices. And if you're not getting responses from them, please feel free to write to the National Director's office, to write to us at head office. And I give you my assurance that we will respond to all of these queries that come to us at the national level. With regard to possible silos within law enforcement, it's been given what we've come through. I think the level of cooperation, although it's not at the highest, I think it is significantly improved and improving all the time. Certainly with the Hawks, and we are working very closely. But I heard that I don't know which honourable member it was that said that a lot of some of our colleagues are saying that matters are with the NPA for decision. Of course, there will be lots of matters that are with the NPA for decision. But in this space, in this particular space, in the Northwest intervention, it would be good to have, because we've listed the cases that we have for decision. The SIU cases, and I want to make this point, Honorable Chair and members, it's very, very important for members to understand that when the SIU completes its investigations, their investigations are not criminally focused. And therefore, even though the SIU Act says that once they complete investigations, they must refer the matters to the NPA, which they do because legally they are obliged to do that. And legally we are obliged to take those cases. The majority of these cases are not ready for criminal prosecutions. So, in fact, I said to Advocate Motibi recently, I said to him, Advocate Motibi, it's a bit naughty to say you're sending it to us for prosecutions when reporting is done, because Advocate Motibi and General Lubia know that once these matters come to us, we then have to send it to the DPCI because there has to be a criminal case docket opened. There has to be a criminal investigation. And of course, to the extent that the prior investigations in the SIU within their mandate would assist any criminal investigation, then of course the DPCI and the SIU would collaborate to get the cases to a point where these cases then come back from the DPCI to the NPA for decision. So I think it's really important to clarify that cases that come from the SIU to the NPA, I really think that perhaps there's a need to change that legislation, because the NPA is not an investigative capacity, and these cases, whether there's 10% or 90% or whatever percentage needs to be investigated to ensure that we meet the criminal standard that allows us to make a decision to prosecute. The DPCI is the next step from the SIU actually, and then it should come back to us. Come to the NPA. So, the legal framework there complicates the process and creates a bit of uncertainty and with regard to how matters flow. But, in this space, if, we will certainly, look at our engage with in terms of which are the cases that actually are still waiting unreasonably in the NPA for a decision, because decisions cannot be taken overnight, because these are complex matters. Many of them we're working with the investigators. But if there's certainly unreasonable delays in the NPA, then we need to be held accountable for those delays and to give explanations or to expedite them. The 51 cases, I agree, they're probably hundreds more. These are the matters that we've received from the DPCI. And with General Libya, as Advocate de Kock said, we are working extremely well. But Honorable Chair and members, I don't know if the extent of the weakening of the DPCI is really appreciated in terms of skills, capacity, forensic investigating capacities. It is for us a source of frustration. And even General Libya knows when I'm in public platforms, I talk about the DPCI capacity because we are joined at the hip. And if there's no capacity in the DPCI, you might as well forget about the NPA. There's nothing we can do. It is a joint success or a joint failure. So we are doing a lot, and I'm very glad that the NPA we've received funding. We are on a vigorous recruitment drive to make sure we have not just the people, but also skills development and capacitating people to deal with this. But the DPCI, I on behalf of General Libya, I really urge all parliamentary committees. There are serious issues, and Chair, you talked about cleaning up the NPA, and I must express appreciation for the work that expressed by the committee in terms of the work that we're doing. We take that as a lot of support, but what we also realize is when there's that amount of confidence in us, you represent the people of the country, and we don't want to let down the people of this country. And we will do everything possible to ensure that confidence is not misplaced by doing the right things right. And in that process, we will come under attack, but as you said, we've got to be fearless in what we do. And irrespective of the attacks, we're not going to be distracted about it. So I think, these are some of the issues that we have to deal with. But the capacitation in the Hawks is almost critical to the success of these interventions and of the entire process in terms of really holding those most responsible accountable at the end of the day, because that is where the impact will be. But Chair, I think those are my comments. I'm not sure that I hope we've covered all of the comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Advocate. Anything from members? Any point that we think is missing, is left out, is not comprehensively covered? Because there's an opportunity to straighten it. It looks like they are all satisfied.
Okay.
Honorable Nita, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just saying, Chair, we are okay. The responses
yes,
were fine.
I can sense that. Just as a way of concluding this discussion, I need to point out that the work of this committee in terms of the mandate of Parliament is on the 26th of this month. As we understand it, this is an ad hoc committee, and we have worked very, very tirelessly, almost every day, dealing with all these issues about the Northwest. We are going to present a report before the 26th, next week, Friday, to the House, and we are going to reflect on all of these issues and place some recommendations about what needs to happen. But I think what we are agitated to say is that special focus must be on the law enforcement agencies, especially the Hawks, because I fully agree with you, Advocate, that you prosecute or don't prosecute on the basis of the cases that are brought to your attention. And part of what I've already instructed the research unit of Parliament to do is to pull all the cases that we got from the NPA, from the Hawks, from the SIU, and even from the SCOPA that we are interacting with and say, maybe there is a mismatch and dichotomy between all the cases that are brought to our attention, but we've got to solve them. We want to say, in our view, you've given us 51 cases, but they are not 51 cases. There are more than that. Look at them, and whether they belong to the DPCI or they belong to the SIU or whatever, this is something that we are going to talk about and recommend, because it is important to use the Northwest as a model, as a way of solving corruption in the Northwest. People acted with impunity, and there ought to be results in terms of how we restore order and government. And we all support the efforts of the president and to say, let's fight this. Let us use every energy and effort at our disposal. Let us support all the institutions, whether these are Chapter 8 or Chapter 9 institutions, or whether it's Parliament. Let us work together in a coordinated fashion to deal with the issues of fraud, crime, and corruption. And that is the way to go, because if we don't, we are literally saying we throw the country to the dogs. Everyone must do as he wishes, and we are going to be paralyzed, all of us, at the end of the day, and we can't afford that. And with that, I think you are on the right track. Members have expressed that view that you are doing quite well, and our responsibility as members of Parliament, in whatever stations of life, in whatever political party we belong to, we want to support all these institutions that are tackling this, and we must understand the enormity of the work that you are doing, conceptualize it, and support you, so that at the end of the day you are successful in that respect. With those words, I think after next week we would know in precision where to go to, what is it that needs to be done in terms of the work of the NCOP, because the NCOP continues to emerge as a House of Parliament that plays that critical role of enforcing accountability and consequence management, but importantly, of making sure that the institutions of government work properly to the benefit of the people. And when it's a provincial government, like it is the case now, we act swiftly, immediately, we attend to the issues that are facing us, and we solve the problems at hand. With that, once more, Advocate Batoi and your team, I think it was quite also good to introduce your team so that we know who are the players who are making this indelible contribution. And that, thank you very much for
Chair.
Information with you. We will indicate to you as to how we must proceed forward based on the approvals of the from Parliament. On that note, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you. Bye.